I'm 30 years old now, married, and this story isn't about my current marriage. It's about the woman who almost destroyed my life. Let's call her S. I was with S for 4 years and engaged to her for 2. She was everything everyone said I could be lucky to have. Beautiful, charming, always able to hold the attention of a room full of people. On the surface, she seemed perfect. But what I didn't realize at the time was that no one could see the cracks in her personality, that I was too blinded by love to notice. I thought I loved her. Well, I did love her, or at least I loved the person I believed she was. We were planning to get married. Everything was set. Wedding dates, the venue, and invitations had already been sent out. But then, just a week before the wedding, I received a text from her. Not a call, not even a face-to-face conversation, just a cold, impersonal text that said, "I can't do this anymore. I'm in love with someone else. I hope you understand." I remember staring at my phone, reading those words over and over, thinking there had to be more. This couldn't be it, right? We had spent 4 years together, and now it was all over in a few short lines of text? But no, that was it. No explanation, no remorse. Just an ending with no closure. I couldn't respond. What could I possibly say to that? Instead, I just sat there, frozen, feeling like my brain had short-circuited. I didn't know how to process it. The next few days were a blur. I was in a fog. People kept asking me about the wedding, and I couldn't even speak. I couldn't face it, so I ignored my mom's calls because I didn't know how to tell her. Then, I found out who she had left me for, our mutual friend. This was the same guy I had invited into my home multiple times. We had laughed together, talked about life, and shared good times. Meanwhile, behind my back, he had been making moves on S. I learned this from another friend who thought I needed to know the truth. The betrayal was crushing in a way I didn't think was possible. While I had been busy planning a future with S, she had been planning her future with him. A few days after she sent the text, S tried calling me and left a voicemail full of apologies. She said she didn't want to hurt me, but she needed to follow her heart, and she hoped I would understand. Understand what exactly? That I was nothing more than a stepping stone in her quest for some other life with another man. I blocked her after that. I didn't want to hear any more of her lies. For months, I didn't know who I was. I lost my appetite, struggled to sleep, and felt completely lost. My friends tried to encourage me to get out, to move on, but the betrayal stung too deeply. Everywhere I went, it felt like everyone was whispering about me, judging me. I'd run into people who didn't know about the breakup yet, and they'd ask, "How's the wedding planning going?" And I had to explain over and over again that it wasn't going on anymore. I was just another guy who had been played. But eventually, with time, I started to heal. Slowly but surely, I began to move on. Then, about 2 years later, I met someone new, a woman named H. She was different. There was no drama, no mind games. She was the type of person you could sit with in complete silence and still feel understood. We took things slow, and I was cautious because of everything that had happened with S. But H wasn't like that. She wasn't flashy or manipulative. She didn't need to be the center of attention. She was steady, real, and reliable. After 2 years of dating, I proposed to her. It wasn't some extravagant proposal. It was just the two of us at home, sharing takeout, and it felt perfect. She said yes, and for the first time in a long while, I felt like my life was back on track. A year later, we got married. It was small, intimate, and most importantly, it felt right. But then, out of nowhere, S showed up. I hadn't heard from her in years. I assumed she was off living the life she had chosen with the other guy. I had moved on, and I thought I had left that chapter of my life behind. But one day, while I was washing my car in the driveway, a car pulled up. At first, I didn't recognize the person inside. But then I saw her, S. She looked exactly the same as she had all those years ago, perfectly put together, like always. But there was something off. She looked desperate. It was clear that something was wrong. I could see it in her eyes before she even opened her mouth. I knew she was here to talk, but I wasn't sure I was ready to listen. "I need to talk to you," she said, standing there like she had every right to just waltz back into my life. I couldn't hide my frustration. "What the hell do you want?" I asked, my voice sharper than I intended. She flinched, but didn't back down. "Can we just sit down?" "Please," she said, almost pleading. I made a mistake. I stared at her, trying to gauge if she was serious. "A mistake?" I repeated, my disbelief palpable. "What are you talking about?" Her voice trembled as she continued. "I shouldn't have left you. I made the worst decision of my life." She paused, as if struggling to hold herself together. "I wasn't who I thought I was. He cheated on me, lied to me, and I've been thinking about you, about us. And now I realize that leaving was the biggest mistake I could have made." I couldn't stop myself from laughing, a cold, bitter laugh that came from deep within. "You made a mistake," I echoed, shaking my head. You left me through a text message for him, and now, just because it didn't work out, you think you can come back like none of it ever happened?" She blinked at me as if she didn't understand why I wasn't thrilled to see her. "I didn't know what I wanted then," she said, her voice soft. "I was confused." "Confused?" I snapped, my anger rising. "You were confused while you were screwing my friend behind my back." Her face went pale, but she didn't stop. "I'm trying to make things right," she insisted, looking at me with pleading eyes. "I still love you." I stared at her in disbelief. "Are you out of your mind?" I couldn't believe what she was saying. "I'm married now. I've moved on. You don't get to come back and screw everything up just because your life didn't go the way you wanted." She stepped closer, her eyes wide with urgency. "But you don't love her like you loved me. You can't. We had something special, something real. I know you still feel it." I was so furious, I couldn't even think straight. "You need to leave. Now." But she didn't move. "I'm not leaving until we talk about this," she said, as if we were still negotiating. "There's nothing to talk about," I said, my teeth gritted. "I'm done with you. I was done the moment you left. Go home. You're not welcome here." For a moment, I thought she might actually throw a punch at me. Her face twisted into an ugly snarl, and she spat out, "You'll regret this. You'll regret choosing her over me." I stepped back, holding the door open. "Get the hell out of here before I call the cops." With a final glare, she stormed off, her heels clacking loudly against the driveway as she got into her car and sped off. I stood there for a minute, trying to calm myself, my hands still shaking from the adrenaline. I thought that was the end of it. But then, a couple of days later, H told me S had called her. "She told me you made a mistake marrying me," H said, her face calm but her hands shaking. "She said that I was the one you were meant to be with." I couldn't believe it. "She called you?" I asked, furious. H showed me the text. S had been trying to manipulate her, saying all sorts of things about how I was only with H because I was broken, how I didn't love her the way I loved S. It was insane. That was it for me. I was done. I went to the police the next day and filed for a restraining order. It wasn't hard. There was enough evidence, with the text voicemails and her showing up at my house. The whole situation made me feel sick, like she was trying to tear apart the life I had built after her. S didn't take it well. A week later, she showed up at the house again, screaming on the front porch. She told me she wasn't done with me, that we still had unfinished business. The cops came and arrested her for violating the restraining order. She spent the night in jail, and that was the last time I saw her. Since then, it's been quiet. H and I are okay. In fact, we're stronger than before, even after everything we've been through. But there's still a part of me that's angry. Angry not just at S, but at myself for ever letting her have so much control over my life. So, that's my story. People can be selfish as hell, and sometimes it takes them years to show their true colors. But when they do, you have to protect what matters. And I did. I'm not looking back. Thanks for reading. And hey, if you've ever had a crazy ex try to come back, hit me up. Maybe we'll start a support group.